Um, hey, look, another day above six. Welcome back to No Cap. The boy DC, real mellow, real mellow. Went to the sushi spot. I, I don't know, man. I don't really know if I like sushi or not. Cause I mean, the flavor was alright, but I got to a certain point. I'm like, nah, I don't want no more. But I couldn't. I still don't know if I'm full or not. I just got to a point. I'm just like, yeah, I'm cool. But women love sushi, boy. I don't like this feeling. I done walked into the kitchen, made some bacon, sat it down. Had to wait till the end of the episode to figure out whether I'm still hungry or not. I go in there and eat me some beef bacon. We'll see. But welcome back to No Cap. Oh, the conversation's about to start getting real, real uncomfortable. Slowly just poking at different ideas and shared opinions and assumptions that we all just go with, but about to get to a point where it's time to get real aggressive and start like poking folk in the forehead some of these facts. And when it came to the topic of today, I was torn between three different topics, and every single one of them is real, real tender spots, real uncomfortable, like conversations where majority of the time somebody's either getting cussed out, you done lost a friend, or you done lost a relationship was never the same after the conversation was over, or it's one where it's so touch and go that folk are just like, whatever you say goes, regardless of whether I agree with you or not. I'm just going to let it ride because I don't want to deal with the consequences of actually having a conversation. So I took all three, put them in a proverbial hat, and just snatched one out of there. And we landed on the one we own today, which is another really common ideal, but not really. It's more so we're going to say it and not really get into what it means or actually what we mean when we're talking about it. But generational curses. And I think the main one to speak on first, the most important, is conversation. And I'm going to come back to it. Like the conversation in the bridge between generations, where that bridge got flooded, destroyed, washed away to the Atlantic Ocean, and folks is just on that side or they on this side. Like there is no conversation being had at all across the aisle between folks, even 5 years age difference. So from like 16 to 21, automatically right there, just because of the rapid rate of development, there's going to be just a massive gap between 16 and 21. But when you get into adulthood, you can use the same 5 year time difference and just go 24 to 29. Huge difference. Folks don't really interact. And you can keep going up, so on and so forth. 29 to 34, 35 to 40, 45 to 50, all the way up where in 5-year increments. So folks who shared a lot of common experiences, folks not connecting. So when you're going through actual generational gaps of 10, 15, 20 years, folks don't even acknowledge each other's existence for real. I've seen it on social media. Folks was like, there's no purpose to have a conversation with anybody in a black family over the age of 60 or 65, one of the two, because they not going to listen. They grew up in a different time. They're not going to respect nothing that you said. They stuck in their ways, and it just is what it is. It's not a natural way to live. That's not normal. And the same way we hold children accountable, you got to hold the older generations accountable, where as long as you're alive, you should be growing, listening, and learning. So if you're not listening, you're not learning. What is you doing? Respectfully. And same goes for like my parents' generation and folks in my generation and kids who are in school right now, where folks are going through their experience of life. And there's so much going on. There's so many distractions that folks aren't aware of what's going on with them. So can't possibly be aware of what's going on with nobody else. And with that being the case, there's no connection. And remember, everything we do is about connecting. It's always about human interaction, about bonding, about me being able to familiarize myself with you, your perspective, and then that gives me more perspective on what's going on with me. But if you're not bonding and you're not able to focus on what's going on with you, you basically spinning in circles, counterclockwise, in the middle of a tornado, in the middle of a sandstorm, during an earthquake, at midnight. There's confusion. It's a whole lot of confusion going on. And it starts with the conversation. Hey, how are you doing? Why are you feeling that way? What experiences led you to your state of mind right now? Let me share my experiences. Where's the common ground? What's different? What changes your perspective compared to what changes mine, even if we're going through some of the same things? That conversation should be as simple as that. But lack of communication, lack of intent to connect, and lack of willingness to be empathetic or sympathetic in some cases, lack of EQ, all of these things are the bottom, barely spoken about examples of generational curses. You didn't know how to talk, so your kids didn't know how to talk, so I don't know how to talk. And all of us got pent up emotions and pent up ideals bubbling up, and they're surfacing in different forms of fashions, and nobody understands why. That's a generational curse. But often when you hear generational curse, it's typically one of three things: money, frame of mind, environment. And majority of the time it's just the first one. But on rare occasions you'll get the other two. But majority of the time it's just the first one. Just, man, we ain't never had shit. We gonna have some shit when it's your turn. I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure you got some money. But today we're gonna look at it and you're gonna understand that money don't fix nothing. Nothing. Same problems that you can have without money, you can have with money. But without further ado, let me go ahead and get to the board. And I'm starting to get real comfortable getting to the board and even putting things up there that kind of convey the overall outline of what's going on. Like, again, it's easy to try to record this, try to chop it up, throw in a whole bunch of graphics, but it's disingenuous. I try not to predetermine things like that. Try to keep the space open for a conversation. And because I might change my mind, like I might want to say something and then be like, on second thought, I'm cool. But once you put the graphic up there, it already is what it is. But let me slide out the way. This is the actual like definition of generational curses as well. So it's not just the phrase that folk use on social media just to sound cool, and it's not just the crying call people put out to try to excuse their lack of consistent intent. You intentional about making money, but are you intentional about other facets of life, like who you're talking to, what kind of connections you're making, what kind of habits are you picking up, what kind of behaviors are you showcasing to others around you? Again, you got two choices: influence or be influenced. And there's intent behind both of them, but you're only in control of one of them. But, and I had to look this up because I always knew this to be true, just because if you think about it long enough, you understand that, I mean, generational curses affect certain things more than others. But definition, not really the definition, but close enough. The conversation about generational curses, though, is typically about the transmission of negative patterns, negative behaviors, and hardships across family generations. And I'm going to get real detailed when we start talking about examples too. And I'm going to speak about the examples that affect my generation. Folks born in the 90s and early 2000s. The factors that affect us most commonly. And I put a few examples on the board. Examples of generational curses are addiction and substance abuse, which is, of course, it can be passed on. And I'm going to go piece by piece because it's going to be more effective. You smoking weed and then making it cool for your kids to smoke. You just passed along a generational curse. So I know a lot of folk like to be like, oh, we break generational curses around here. Yeah, we making money. We ain't never had no money before, but we got something. You creating generational curses, so you're not breaking them. You actually making them. Substance abuse. You an alcoholic. You told your kids it's cool to drink, and you didn't teach them how to go about drinking responsibly. So putting a bottle of Douce, putting the Cuervo on your head, putting that on your head and letting them drink out the bottle, drink until you're drunk, that kind of culture. Congratulations. You are now the new owner of another generational curse. You smoked because it was fun. You liked the way it made you feel. So you told your kids that it's cool for you to smoke too. I started smoking at your age, so you can go ahead and do it. Congratulations. You are now the owner of a new generational curse. And it is directly your fault. You can try to pinpoint the behavior and the decisions you made on other people, but if something starts with you, then it starts with you. The action made me do this. Okay. And you created the generational curse. You took one, you turned it into two. Good job. Health issues. Mental health issues are generational curses. And this is a word that I'm going to get to probably tomorrow. It'll probably be the word of the day tomorrow. Epigenetics show that your mental health issues can be passed down and can become hereditary. If the trauma is deep enough, it will change your DNA and you will pass down mental health issues, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, multiple personalities, OCD, so on and so forth, bipolar disorder. Instead of dealing with the problems before they became bigger problems by letting them exacerbate, you just pass along your mental health issues to your kids, unknowingly or not. It's possible. Congratulations. Emotional health issues, not being able to regulate your emotions. Again, negative patterns, negative behaviors. You having low EQ and not learning the skills appropriate, and you choose to reproduce, kids are going to follow what you do, not what you say. So you snapping just because, oh, I felt like it. Okay. That's a negative behavior. And you pass that along to your kids. Congratulations. And of course, physical, because chronic illnesses and ailments, certain things that can be fixed or can't be fixed, both can be passed down. And those are ones that it's kind of tough to get around. But again, are you having these conversations before you reproduce? Do you know the ins and outs of your spouse or potential spouses or your baby daddy or your baby mama? Do you know their lineage of health issues or their track record? It's important. That kind of shit is important. I heard Chad Johnson say that. I used to go out on dates with women. I used to go run with them. Used to go work out with them. Used to want to see how they were in school. What were you studying? What kind of habits did you have? Because all of that's going to be passed down to my kids. Facts. So if cuz got sickle cell, his daddy got sickle cell, his granddaddy had sickle cell, his great granddaddy had sickle cell. Even though it's something you can't control, congratulations. Broken family structure. And this is the one, this is the heavyweight one right here, because this one is going to lead to conversations down the line where it gets real uncomfortable. And those are the conversations start to show for why you even start the platform. Divorce. Me, myself, I don't believe in divorce. Once you go before God and you say, till death do us part, you said till death do us part. So to have the audacity to be like, nah, this happened, so never mind. You didn't respect your vows when you was giving them. And of course, I'm nobody to judge, but looking at it for face value, you either a man or a woman of your word or you not. You promise do whatever, regardless of what it was. Y'all are married. Then you change your mind. I mean, I know the excuse. Things change. Things popped up. People change. Yeah, but your vows didn't change. I've and the crazy thing is, I've never gone to a wedding where somebody was like, "And these vows are fluid. We hold and reserve the right to adjust these vows as we see fit moving forward." No, it's always the same cookie cutter, A B C D E, and that is what it is. And then you go against it. Don't make sense to me. But hey, take that up with God, right? And we all know that your conversation with God don't be concrete. It's the thing about faith. It's subjective. So people can adjust it, lie on it, change it, renege on it whenever they feel like. Because there ain't gonna be no consequences until there's some consequences. Only folk that's gonna know we lying is people that's there and it's time to meet them. But divorce is so huge, right? Because been over it before. The marriage rate is like plummeting. And we'll get into that later before we start like dipping our toes into relationship situations. But the divorce rate is staying up and rising. So folks are constantly giving vows and saying vows and agreeing to vows and then just being like, never mind. But what's the after effect of you saying never mind? Remember, y'all two became one. Everything that you do, everything that you say, everything that you work towards, you now have to split apart. And it doesn't just impact you, it impacts your friends, your family, because these folks are now accepting these people into their circles. And now they have to completely disavow themselves from your family. And it makes it awkward for everybody. Divorce affects everybody. Now think about how it affects your kids. Regardless of what you say or what excuse you put behind it, you've already put into the mind's eye. Whenever you feel like it, that shit can just be over. Marriage, which was supposed to be absolute, has become subjective. And that's part of why people not really getting married. Not often. Nowhere near as often as they used to. Because the rules of marriage are not concrete anymore. Marriage is subjective. Marriage is like choosing a career path. I can choose to work here until I want another job and then I'm out of here. And that affects a lot. And then you get to the people who didn't even get married and just started reproducing. So there was no family structure. Again, another conversation that's going to be had with parenting. We'll say that for tomorrow. Then you got alienation, which goes into baby mama, baby daddy situation. And then like casting people aside for whatever reason, be adoption, could be separation, but not divorce. But instead of man, woman, children being raised in the household, some sort of deviation from that plan. Congratulations. That is a huge generational curse. And then the one I put at the bottom, I put it at the bottom for a reason: financial hardship. Because if you have family structure, if you have proper behavior, and you have positive influences, you have personality, and you have high morals, high moral standard, high characteristics, high positive characteristics, and you just don't have money, you can get up. You'd be surprised how far you can get with lack of resource financially, but an abundance of resource communally. I mean, take African Americans, for example. We own a very minuscule percent of the resources in the US. But even fractured, we have the strongest community. It's the wildest thing you ever see. Y'all killing each other. Y'all harming each other. Y'all robbing each other. Y'all abusing each other. Y'all making music for each other. Y'all making businesses for each other. Y'all making food for each other. Y'all building families with each other. Everything is still within your community. And as much as there's negative and positive, the fact that folks stay in their community says a lot. But financial hardships is a generational curse because it affects quality of life. All of these things affect quality of life, but financial hardship more so than others because it affects your mental health and your physical health. Got to be able to provide for myself so I can build upon my family. And that's pretty easy to follow, but it's not different than anybody else. You need in order to flourish. But all of those things, generational curses. So let me bring it back. So we talking about generational curses, right? Now, excuse me. Time to do some self-reflection amongst your generation. This is the most educated generation of all time. Most degrees ever. Most high school graduates and diplomas ever. So that should lead to less financial hardship, right? There's a lot more freedom now than ever. You have the right to go out and do more, experience more, see more. So that sense of freedom should lead to a better state of mental health, right? With more freedom should come less stress. So less reliance on substance abuse and less reliance on these substances and less addiction, right? So what gives? And what seems to be the least stressful time period to live in, and I'm, of course, look at me, I'm going to speak for these folk. What seems to be the least stressful time period to live in of all time. Are there less generational curses now or more? I just read the board for you. You can go through and pick and choose and see what's more common, what's less common, what's more likely to be a problem now than ever before. And I'll make the proclamation in 2025, there are more generational curses than there ever been, ever. Ever. More. Because with all that freedom, also came lack of structure. The alienation, I'm gonna paint the picture for you. The alienation that came, right? Folks leaving the house, I'm choosing my freedom. I'm going to do what I want. With that freedom, the ideology of the individual over the group, family structures fell apart even more than before. There were other factors, but of course, folks want to do for them now. Fuck the family. I'm going to do for me. Family structure fell apart. And at the same time, these folks saying forget their family, now lonelier than ever and more dependent on alcohol, narcotics, so on and so forth. So addiction is more common. With all this addiction and all of these distractions that come from the lack of interaction and the lack of connectivity because you abandon that part, comes more mental issues and emotional issues that like to pop up as physical symptoms. They manifest themselves in other forms of fashions. I'm depressed, so I don't eat, so I lose weight, and I have these diseases that come from lack of nutrition. And because I'm dealing with all of these issues, the freedom that I had to chase whatever I wanted and to do whatever I wanted has led to more financial hardship. So the folk whose ancestors came from slavery, where you literally owned nothing, you didn't even own your family. Somebody else would split your family apart whenever they felt like it. Couldn't keep your culture. You had zero resources. You were legit free labor. The folk who came from that were the generational curses, just that oppressive motherfucker, that white person. Yeah. White people were the generational curse. You went from just white people to substance abuse, health issues, lack of family. Like, you don't even acknowledge, at least with these folk, they acknowledge who their family was. You're not even acknowledging family now. And folk who owned nothing had less financial hardship than we do now, because they didn't own shit, but they also ain't owe shit. Everybody's in debt. And the crazy thing is when you mix the issues of racism, the quote unquote progressiveness of feminism, and then the American spirit of capitalism, you get this concoction of a nuclear bomb of generational curses, where you taught the freedom of feminism. You don't need nobody else. Just get yours. Racism, where you always feel like somebody's holding you down or oppressing you. And capitalism, where making a dollar is the most important thing. You got a bunch of folk who are chasing money and lonely as fuck, just feeling trapped, and everything seems chaotic, trying to figure out what's wrong, what's going on. The answer is simple. You want to fix generational curses? Easy. Human interaction, connection. Find your people. Build healthy habits with your people. Folks that you share goals with, you share ideology with. And that could be as simple as that. Y'all don't got to share religions, or y'all don't even have to share all ideology. Just, here's how I see life. Here's how you see life. We both want the same thing. Boom. Let's keep growing our group. Connecting. Let's keep sharing perspective so we can all connect with each other. Because once you got that connection, then you can start sharing healthy habits, healthy behaviors, healthy coping mechanisms. You feel me? You get where I'm coming from? Because even if you don't have money, somebody's got enough resources for everybody to eat. But I don't come from that win some, lose some mindset. Nah, fuck all that. You can win it all. You can have it all if you want it all and if you want to put in the work for it. If you got big dreams, it means you got bigger sacrifices. I want healthy habits. I want healthy behaviors. I want a healthy network. I want an abundance of resources. And I want to be able to reverberate in every environment that I come across. I want that to be the situation. Cool. That means all that being influenced shit with people who aren't aware of themselves and have no intentions or don't even share your intentions, you got to cut them off. Folks that's just talking and they uninformed, you got to cut them off. It takes big sacrifices to achieve big goals if you really want to overcome generational curses. Because if I'm being honest, for a lot of folk, it's over. You're not going to be the one to overcome a generational curse. Your kids can be, though. You're going to have to be the one that bite the bullet. All that trauma and shit that stops with you, it don't stop before you. You got to suffer through all that shit till you die. But just because you suffering through it don't mean you got to make your kids suffer through it. But it's a hard pill to swallow. You going to have to suffer. If you want these generational curses to stop, you got to go through some uncomfortable shit. And you can't, being human, your brain and your emotions are going to fight against you sometimes where, man, it's uncomfortable. I see people enjoying life over there. It got to be more fun to be doing what they doing. Nah, you got to have that conversation. They probably don't got the same goals as you. Their situation ain't the same as yours. The only way to find out, you got to make interacting and that human connection the first priority. Authentic, genuine, wholesome human interaction is going to be the answer to the majority of your problems. Trust me. In every facet of life that you go in, human interaction, authentic, wholesome human interaction is always the answer. It's the end all be all, the best medicine you can get in almost every situation. So you want to fix these generational curses, you got to go through some generational trauma. You got to go through some shit. But you got to find your route to human interaction, wholesome interaction, intentional interaction. And I don't mean intentional like, yeah, I see this fantasy and I'm chasing. Nah, fuck all that. That fantasy, if you're chasing a fantasy, 9 times out of 10, it's just that a fantasy is not real. Because when you fighting generational curses, the goal is some shit that you'll probably never see. Because you can't experience it for yourself. Once you've already been influenced by generational curses, you've already been influenced. So your goal should be the folk after you not even being able to fathom the shit that you're talking about. So if you legit want to attack that shit right there, you got to be willing to make yourself a martyr. What are you willing to sacrifice? And if the answer ain't yourself, it's the end of the conversation. But till next time.
Halo.